If you're considering selling your home in Sunrise Valley, you may think that your competition is other homes in Sunrise Valley, but that is not necessarily how buyers shop. And I really want to make this distinction because it's important. As you know, I'm your neighbor. I live here in Sunrise Valley. Homeowners will come up to me and tell me, oh, my neighbor's house sold for X amount, so my house must be worth that much. That is not how it works. That's not how buyers shop. So the real question, and this is something I will walk you through on an individualized basis, is what are buyers comparing when they're viewing your home in Sunrise Valley? So they're going to look at the price point, and they're going to look at what else they can get for that same money elsewhere in the township or wherever their search radius may be. They may not only be looking in this township, they may be looking at other townships. So, but specifically in Upper Saucon, one of the areas that Sunrise Valley is competing with is newer construction homes. And I believe there's a lot of benefits to buying in Sunrise Valley rather than buying new construction. Maybe not for every buyer, because every buyer is different. For some buyers, the new construction might make more sense. But the newer construction subdivisions are direct competition for Sunrise Valley because of the higher price point. And we need to make that distinction. We have to look at your property and say, well, what does your property have that cannot easily be replicated elsewhere? And those are the features that we are going to focus on. And one of the features, if you're in Sunrise Valley, that we're going to focus on is Sunrise Valley itself. Because buyers like mature, established neighborhoods. It makes them feel more confident in their decision to buy. It makes them feel more secure. It removes a lot of the unknowns. And Sunrise Valley is really in a prime location, more so than even other Upper Saucon new construction neighborhoods. So there are a lot of benefits just right off the bat, just being part of Sunrise Valley. So we're going to look at what are the features that your house has that the other houses do not have, and we're going to focus on those. What else is your competition if your house is in Sunrise Valley? You're going to be competing with, obviously, other houses around the same price point. And we're going to look at those houses when you're ready to list to see what's going on, what's sold recently, what's pending, what was the buyer reaction to that. These are all things that are really important that we need to look at, and I will walk you through that. But it's really important to note that you're not just competing with Sunrise Valley homes. Another thing that's really important is that buyers do not necessarily stick to a single price range. So let's say if they're pre-approved for $1 million, it doesn't mean they're only looking at $1 million houses. They might look at houses that are $700,000 or $800,000 and say, well, what are the trade-offs? What can I get for my money at the lower price point? And is it worth the price difference to buy the higher priced house or not, depending on what I'm getting? And this is why the whole concept of positioning, and I always talk about the 4 Ps, pricing, preparation, presentation, positioning. This is why it's so important, because when they're looking at your house and comparing it to their other options, such as new construction or such as other properties in the area, you want them to make the distinction and say, well, this house makes sense. And that's what positioning is. Positioning is how does your house compare to all of the other houses? And if you're in Sunrise Valley, you're also competing directly with Valley Green. There is a lot of crossover between the two subdivisions. We're right across the street from each other. They're different. Not everybody is going to look in both, but a lot of buyers will consider both because they're so similar and the price ranges are similar. So you're competing with Valley Green. Luckily, they have a low turnover rate like we do, so there's not like a ton of competition at any given time, usually. You also, to a lesser extent, but you may be competing with some of the lower priced houses in Way Hill Estates. That's only about 5 minutes from here. The houses are a lot newer. I just closed on one in May in there. It was $974. That's one of the lower priced houses in there, so that's actually a good comparable property to Sunrise Valley. Someone with $1 million budget may look at some of the higher priced houses in Sunrise Valley and some of the lower priced houses in Way Hill Estates. So that's sort of a indirect competition. And then there's some other properties throughout the township that are maybe a little less suburban and more rural that buyers are going to look at. And that's going to be a trade-off. That's going to be where they're going to say, well, do I want the suburban Sunrise Valley environment, or do I want more land and I want to be further out? And if you go a little further out, you're going to get a little more for your money. But that's not for every buyer. So every buyer is going to have different preferences. So that's important to take into account. So there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of nuance to this, and it is different for every house and every seller. So I have to walk you through it at the specific time you're ready to list, because it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. I can't sit here and tell you what your competition is, right? I mean, I could give you some general examples like this, but I can't tell you what your competition is because I don't know what's going to be for sale in 6 months from now, if that's when you're planning on selling. So at the time, I'm going to sit down and go through with you, what is our competition? How are we going to position your house? What features do you have that the other houses don't have? And we're going to focus on that. We're going to identify the likely buyers for your property, and then I'm going to explain to you how I'm going to target those buyers and what my marketing plan is going to look like. And my marketing plan will be individualized for your specific house. It's not a general marketing plan that I follow for every property. It looks different for every single house. So it's really important to note. So if you live in Sunrise Valley, just keep this concept in mind. Your competition is not other houses in Sunrise Valley. It's highly unlikely that there's 2 houses in Sunrise Valley for sale at the same time. It does happen, but it doesn't happen very often. In that case, that one particular house would be competition for you, potentially. But in general, houses that previously sold in Sunrise Valley are not, sorry about the camera, my puppy is knocking it over. Houses that sold in Sunrise Valley are not your direct competition. So don't think that you're going to get a certain price for your house just because your neighbor did.